Welcome back, everybody, to week 2 of Peak 6.0. I hope you had a great first week. It seemed like a lot of you did a lot of the stuff we were looking at, your talent transformers, as well as a bingo card. So that's awesome to see. I hope you're also excited for this week and what we have tonight. Erin is back once again to teach us the best way to fuel our bodies, teach us all about nutrition, and help us reach our peak. So without further ado, Erin, I'll hand it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me back. I love hanging out with you guys and talking all things nutrition. And tonight we are talking about one of my favorite topics to teach on in terms of nutrition and supporting our bodies, which is gut health. And gut health has been getting a lot of attention recently. We hear it pop up a lot, taking care of our guts and all this stuff. So we're going to be diving into what do we actually need to do to support it? Why is it important? All this good stuff tonight. So, like I said, we're going to talk about why does it matter? Why do we care about our gut in the first place? What are the gut healthy nutrition principles that we want to pay attention to? What are some additional lifestyle practices that we can incorporate because supporting our gut can absolutely go beyond the kitchen? And how do we integrate it into in a simple, manageable way so we don't feel overwhelmed with it? So let's start out just talking about what's the big deal with our guts. Again, we hear this all the time lately. Gut health has become a bit of a trendy topic. We hear about it all the time. We hear, about these different programs and supplements and all these things to take care of our guts. So why have our guts become such a focus in the health and nutrition space? Well, basically because gut health impacts everything. So in terms of the research around gut health, it's actually still relatively new, but the tip of the iceberg that we are seeing is very, very interesting in terms of how our gut health affects everything else. So it impacts our immune system, it impacts our metabolism. It impacts our energy levels and how energized we feel. It impacts nutrient absorption. So, making sure that, all that delicious, healthy food we're eating, we can actually use those vitamins and minerals appropriately. Our guts help determine if we can do that or not. Hormonal balance, all sorts of bio feedback like cravings and appetite, our moods, all these things are intertwined with our gut health. And so when we take a look at supporting our guts, we're really looking at supporting our body's overall balance, how we're overall feeling. So definitely something to pay attention to. And this is definitely not to say that every little thing is caused by the gut. That's not, every time we're tired, like, oh, it must be a gut health problem. No. That's not necessarily what it means. But it more just to look at it as an integral part of our health. And when we're supporting our guts, we can be supporting all these other pieces as well. So it's good bang for our buck if we're going to put our attention into focusing on a piece of nutrition or focusing on a piece of our health. This is a great one because we get a lot of value for it. It supports all these different areas of our health. So, especially for athletes, our gut health is pivotal. Like I said, that nutrient absorption piece, making sure that all that nutritious food that we are eating, our body can actually utilize it to rebuild muscle, repair, recover, make sure that we are performing at our best. Our gut health is really, really important for that. So, especially as athletes and when we're really active, we've got different sports and activities going on, paying attention to our gut health can really help us get the most bang for our buck out of our activity. Again, making sure that our body feels its best, we have the energy to perform, that we have the right things we need to recover well. All these things play into our gut. So supporting our gut is absolutely a pivotal part of the health protocol when we are involved in athletics and sports. So getting to know your gut. So what exactly are we going to be talking about? Because technically our digestive system starts in our mouth and goes all the way through our body. We can also be looking at the linings of our intestines, like our intestinal wall. There's all these different pieces that go into our guts. But today we're mainly going to be focusing on our microbiota, which is the bacteria that populate our intestines. And specifically, our large intestine is where we find the vast majority of this bacteria. So we've got this lovely little colony of bacteria that lives, like I said, predominantly in our large intestine. That's mainly what we're going to be focusing on today, because when we are focusing on supporting that lovely little home for our gut bacteria, when they are doing well, we can be doing well as well. So what are the things that these microbiota do, these bacteria? They have so many different jobs within our body, within our guts. So they can make vitamins, amino acids, hormones. Like there's a whole production system happening there. They produce serotonin. So if we want, that mood boost, that's a really important piece. Like 95% of our serotonin is produced in our gut, which affects our moods. They produce molecules that can strengthen the gut barrier. So again, like helping with our immune system right there, and making sure that nothing gets into our bloodstream that shouldn't be there. It can help with balancing blood sugar, lowering triglycerides, regulating appetite and cravings, and also in terms of long-term health outcomes, looking at, chronic disease, things like this. The research they're doing right now around supporting our microbiota, that gut bacteria, is really promising for that as well. So it's not just about how we're feeling today. It can also really set us up for good, positive health outcomes long-term as well. And that microbiota also communicates with our brain. And we're going to talk more about that throughout today. But there's a whole communication system that's also happening as well. They sometimes talk about our guts as like the second brain, because it actually has its own nervous system, and this communication between the gut and the brain is really, really important and really can influence how we're feeling, those energy levels, the mood, our alertness, all these kinds of things. Our microbiota does a lot of work, so we want to make sure that we're taking care of them, because when they are thriving, we can thrive. So let's talk about nutrition for gut health. What are the big things that matter in terms of nutrition when it comes to feeding those healthy bacteria? That's what we're really focusing on today. How can we feed those microbiota, make sure that they're nice and healthy, they can thrive, they can do their jobs really well? There's two really big things that matter when it comes to our gut health nutrition, and that is fiber and diversity. And this is going to sound so simple, and that's kind of the beauty of supporting our gut health, is it really can be simple. But we're going to dive into what does this mean, and how do we get the most out of this. So let's talk about fiber first. We have talked about fiber together before, but just as a refresher, fiber is a form of carbohydrate that we find in plant foods. So we find it in fruits and veggies, nuts and seeds, beans and chickpeas, like legumes. We find it in whole grains. That's where we get fiber from. Plant foods equals fiber. So that's where we can find those sources. Really, really important for long-term health and supporting the gut. Obviously, fiber has a bunch of different roles. Fruits and veggies gives us all these different nutrients and all that. But in terms of the gut, this fiber piece is so, so important, because they help feed that bacteria. They help create a nice little home for them. So while they're doing all that hard work, we are making sure they have everything they need to thrive. So fiber, we don't actually digest or absorb it. It makes its way through our digestive tract and gets to that large intestine, where it can do all that lovely work for our microbiota. So that's why we want lots of fiber. This is their food. This is their fuel. They want to eat this fiber and use that to do all the work they need to do in terms of keeping us feeling our best. So fiber is king when it comes to gut health. Now, keeping that in mind, we definitely don't want to go from 0 to 100 with fiber. We want to start slow, especially if you don't feel like you have a lot of fiber in your diet to begin with. Just because if we go too quickly, nothing, like, it's not going to harm us in any way, but it will be very uncomfortable. It is a recipe for digestive upset, for a tummy ache, for some sore stomachs if we go too hard on fiber too fast. So we don't want to go from like barely eating any vegetables to 14 smoothies a day. That will just give us the worst stomach ache. Not ideal. So starting slow when it comes to fiber, gauging where you're at and kind of moving from there is going to be really important here. Another important consideration is we want to make sure you're focusing on foods that you enjoy. So like I said, there's so many different areas where we can get this fiber from, right? Like all these different plant foods. So if there's certain vegetables you hate, or certain foods that maybe don't agree with you, like certain whole grains that don't feel good for your body or things like that, that's fine. There's so many different options for us to choose from. So you definitely don't have to feel like you're choosing things that you don't enjoy or that don't feel good for your body just for the sake of eating fiber. You definitely want to be eating things that do feel good for you. So just making sure to include that enjoyment factor there is really, really important. In terms of how much fiber we're eating, so you don't have to track fiber. You don't have to pay attention to the numbers at all, but I know some people do like to know. So the general recommendation is 20 to 30 grams a day. Like if you are hitting 30 grams of fiber a day, that's lots of fiber. Your gut will be very happy for the most part. But again, you don't have to track that. You know, it can be as simple as just paying attention. Like, do I have some like fruits and veggies in at least, you know, one of my meals today? Do I have some nuts and seeds as, you know, maybe a part of a snack? Like things like that are just fine. You definitely don't have to track. But just to give you an example of what 30 grams of fiber would look like, that could be 2 pieces of fruit throughout the day, 5 servings of veggies, so maybe like a big salad, and then maybe, you know, maybe you include a little handful of veggies in your one of your smoothies with some fruit. 3 portions of whole grains, so that could be, you know, a sandwich and then maybe some crackers later, and 1 to 2 portions of nuts or seeds or beans. So you can see like how you could spread this throughout the day. And yes, this is quite a bit of fiber, but it is doable to spread these things out. But again, you definitely don't have to go from 0 to 100 or feel like if you aren't hitting a ton of fiber every day, that's bad. You know, it's more, what do we do over a long period of time? What are the things we do most of the time? Doesn't mean every single meal has to have tons of fiber in it or anything like that. Just something to keep in the back of our minds. You know, are we on a regular basis getting at least some? And even small increases in our fiber intake, we don't have, again, like don't have to go, whoa, all in. Even small increases can actually make a big impact on long-term health outcomes. You know, talking about sort of, you know, our risk for chronic disease and things like that, even small increases in fiber can actually really benefit us. So don't feel like you need to do a million things with this. It's kind of just getting curious about where am I at with fiber currently and where could I maybe sprinkle in a little bit more. So what are some ways that we can slowly start to increase our intake of fiber? So one thing we can look at is the 5 S's. So these are meals that are very easy to naturally stick some fiber into. So in this case, this is scrambles, smoothies, salads, soups, and stir fries. 5 S's. So these kinds of meals, if we are including these throughout our week, really easy ways to include a little extra fiber. So for instance, you know, scrambles, like doing like a little egg scramble or even omelet, we can throw some veggies in there, maybe some diced onion and peppers, things like that. Whatever you have on hand can work well in a scramble, or maybe, you know, doing a little bit of avocado in there and some salsa. You could do sort of like a Tex-Mex scramble. There's lots of different ways to include some fiber in there. You could even throw a little bit of black beans in with the eggs if you wanted. So that's a great way to add fiber really easily. Smoothies obviously are like a fiber fast food. They're a great way to get more fruit in. If you like including veggies in your smoothies, you can absolutely do that. You can include nut butter. So we've got those nuts in there. So we're getting some fiber through that. There's so many ways to add fiber into our smoothies, right? So smoothies are a great one, especially if you're looking for something convenient. Salads, again, of course, like a big bowl of veggies is great. Plus we could sprinkle some nuts and seeds on there. Maybe we could use some chickpeas or black beans or something as the protein. So we've got some extra fiber in there. So salads, really great way to get in some fiber. Soups work great as well because, you know, we can have like tons of veggies in there or beans or whole grains. You know, we can include like some rice or things like that in there, or a whole grain pasta. So soups, really easy to include some fiber in. Stir fries as well, right? If we do say a brown rice stir fry or a quinoa stir fry, something like that, where we've got a whole grain, we can, you know, mix some veggies in there, maybe do a little bit of seeds or something on top. Great way to include some fiber. So even just thinking about it, if, you know, you didn't think about anything else, just being like, can I include one of these meals just a few times a week? Can I include a smoothie a few times a week? Could I maybe get a salad here and there? These are great ways to just slowly bump up the fiber intake. So kind of thinking about the 5 S's in terms of meals is a nice, simple way to do that. other little things, like I was saying, just sprinkling in some nuts and seeds. So say you have oatmeal, every morning, can we sprinkle maybe a little bit of chia seed on there, or some hemp seeds, or some pumpkin seeds, or maybe some sliced almonds? That's a great way to include a little extra dose of fiber. You could also do that with like I said, a stir fry or a salad, sprinkling like some cashews on your stir fry, or some sesame seeds, or having that something in your salad as well can work really well. So just sprinkle in a little nut and seed, that can work really well. Swapping in a whole grain option. So maybe if you have like toast every day or a sandwich, just swapping, maybe a white bread option for 100% whole wheat or another whole grain option, that's a really simple way to just boost up your fiber with a meal you're already eating. And there's nothing wrong with having like a white bread option at all. This is just simple ways to increase the fiber. So if you're looking for easy, simple swaps, that's a great one. Same goes for, say, if you make pasta often, maybe switching to a whole grain pasta or a chickpea or lentil pasta, great way to up the fiber. So just looking for things like that. Sneaking an extra veggie into like sauces and dressings. So, and this can work well for smoothies, soups, anything, like any little area where we can just sneak in a little bit of veggies, like into a sauce. We could do, depending on what it was, like say we're making a pesto, maybe we can throw a handful of spinach in there. If we're making, say, a tomato sauce for a pasta, maybe we can dice up some mushrooms and onion and just cook that down in there. So just kind of getting curious, like, is there a veggie I could sneak in here that, wouldn't throw off the dish? That could be a great way to up the fiber. And a really simple way, keeping the skin on your fruits and veggies, instead of peeling your carrots, just giving them a good scrub. Same with like potatoes, things like that. That's a great way to up the fiber content as well. So there's lots of simple ways to be increasing fiber. And again, you don't have to go from 0 to 100. It's more just getting curious. How could I add in a little bit of nut and seed here? How could I add in a little bit of fruits and veggies here? Is there a whole grain option of this food that I eat all the time? Maybe if you snack on crackers all the time, maybe once in a while we swap it for an option that's like a nut and seed cracker. Something like that can be just a great way to increase our fiber without having to overhaul our diets. That's the beautiful thing about working on our gut health, is we don't have to overhaul anything. It's more just about what can we add in here and there? What are some simple swaps we can make? So that's what we want to look at increasing. So let's talk about the diversity piece. So we said there's two main pieces, right? There is the fiber and diversity piece. So this still is playing off of that fiber piece, specifically eating lots of different types of plant foods, lots of different sources of fiber. Our gut loves diversity because all these different foods have different nutrients, different types of fiber, all this kind of stuff. And it actually allows our gut microbiome to become more diverse as well. And diversity is a great thing when it comes to our gut. So when we eat a more diverse amount of plant foods, that actually feeds a really healthy, diverse microbiome as well. So the more diverse your diet, the more diverse the nutrient supply is for your microbiota. And we like that. That is a good thing for us. And this doesn't have to all be concentrated into one day. Like, okay, I have to eat 50 kinds of plant foods in one day to make sure it's a diverse diet. You can do this over the course of time, right? Like, what does your diversity of your different plant foods look like over a week or over a month? And you can almost make this into a game, right? Like you can make a little like checklist in your head of like, how many different kinds of plant foods can I eat this month? And be like, okay, I ate spinach, and then one day I ate kale, and then one day I ate cauliflower, and then one day I ate a banana, and one day I ate an apple. Like those are all different things, right? So you could make it kind of a game out of like, how many different kinds of plant foods can I eat? But you can spread that out. It definitely doesn't have to all happen in one day. It can be over the course of time. Another great way to increase diversity in your diet is with herbs and spices. So herbs and spices, like things like cinnamon and cumin and chili powder and all these things, they come from plants. And because we can have a whole bunch of them sort of included depending on what we're cooking over the course of a week or a month, having different types of seasonings, different flavor profiles with our meals is a great way to easily increase the diversity, because those herbs and spices also feed our microbiota. So just having different flavor profiles, having like a Mexican dish once in a while, and maybe having a Greek dish because we're going to use different flavors. Maybe we'll use oregano over here and cumin over here and black pepper over here. That's diversity too. So you can even like add those ones to your checklist as well. Another great way to promote more diversity in your diet is just doing some seasonal eating. And this can happen really naturally, right? Like as we go into summer, fresh berries, are more in season. So maybe we eat more of those, or when apples are in season, maybe we eat more of those. Whereas more going into the winter months, maybe we focus more on root veggies, like potatoes and yams and carrots and things like this. And again, you don't have to eat perfectly seasonally. It's more just, eat things that are fresh when they are available. If you have them around, if you have a garden or, something like that nearby, just eating a little bit of seasonal food and kind of varying it a bit throughout the year, just depending on what's available and what's tasting really good at the time, is a really no-brainer way to increase the diversity. And then also just rotating items in your weekday staples. So say you make the same smoothie every week. Can we just switch it up, a little bit now and then, like maybe using a different kind of nut butter in it periodically, like once you're out of the peanut butter, maybe switching to an almond butter for a little bit, or, maybe you use chia seeds in your smoothie, maybe we'll switch it to like a flax seed for, when you run out of those, or maybe you always use spinach, maybe we can use a different green, things like this, or maybe instead of blueberries, we switch to strawberries. These are easy ways too, just to kind of make little tweaks, as you use one thing up, just switching to a different option, so that you can have that diversity. So these are all really simple ways to have a little bit more variety in our diets. And again, when we have that variety, our gut is very, very happy. And another key important in terms of the nutrition piece is the hydration as well. So as we're upping our fiber and eating more plant foods and all that, it's really, really important to make sure that we are drinking lots of water also. Because like I said, that fiber, it isn't being digested and absorbed. It actually has to move its way through our system to get to that large intestine so it can feed all that bacteria. We need water to be able to do that. So if you're increasing your fiber, just making sure you're increasing how much water you're drinking as well. That's just going to make everything move more smoothly. Yes? Is there anything we should avoid when it comes to nutrition with our gut health? So we've talked about this fiber and diversity piece, what we should be adding in. Is there anything we should keep out of our diet in terms of promoting a healthy gut? So the biggest thing here is going to just be getting to know your body. Like I said, if there's foods don't make you feel good, or foods you are allergic or sensitive to, those are going to be things to avoid for sure. One common thing that goes around a lot is that sugar hurts our good bacteria, and that's actually not true. There's many reasons to be mindful about sugar intake, but sugar is actually digested higher up in our digestive tract, so it actually doesn't really make it to our large intestine for the vast majority of it. So well, yes, there could be lots of reasons to moderate our sugar intake. It's not necessarily because it's going to get into our large intestine and harm that good bacteria. That's just a common myth I hear a lot. So I just wanted to clear that one up. But there are some things that can be possible triggers of digestive distress. So again, getting to know your body is going to be the biggest thing. Like if there's foods, don't make me feel good, don't eat them. That's going to be not good for your gut bacteria. But some other things that can give us some digestive distress. So common allergens, only if you're allergic to them. So if you suspect you have a food sensitivity or an allergy, just taking a look at those to see if anything in there might be upsetting you. Really large meals can be a cause of digestive distress and upset our gut microbiome a little bit. And again, these kinds of shifts, like a really large meal or even, a high fat meal, too much fiber at once, they will give you some temporary digestive distress. They're not necessarily something that's causing any sort of long-term damage to your gut microbiome, but just something to keep in mind. If it doesn't make you feel very good, being a little bit mindful of these things, like a really large meal at once, a really high fat meal at once, too much fiber at once, these things, just kind of slowing down and being mindful of how they make you feel. Again, it's not that they're doing any sort of irreparable damage to your gut microbiome, but they probably don't feel that good and might be something to keep an eye on, because it can definitely throw off your balance if these things really upset you and you're engaging in them fairly often. Raw veggies can be upsetting for some people. Some people they have sensitive digestive systems and don't really love a lot of raw vegetables at once. So just something to pay attention to. Again, All of these are just if they upset your stomach, not that these are bad things. So it's just things to keep an eye on. If you do notice that you have some digestive distress and you're not quite sure what's causing it, you could kind of just take a look at some of these things and say, are any of these my triggers? So the raw veggies one can be one for a lot of people. So just something to pay attention to. Food right before activity. So especially when, we are going into like sport, we're going into exercise, eating immediately before can be upsetting for our guts. So just keeping an eye on that. We might want to space our snack out just a little bit. And another really common one that's like a really easy shift to make, especially if you have really sensitive digestion, is just not chewing well enough. And it sounds so silly, but chewing our food really, really well. Like I said, our digestive tract starts in our mouth, and chewing really, really well can really help make the whole digestive process easier. Same with just slowing down a bit. So again, if you feel like, you have a lot of stomach pain or like gut distension, just digestive problems in general, or really sensitive digestion, just starting by chewing really, really well and slowing down your meal can help a lot too. So again, these are just things to keep an eye on if you feel like you have that sensitive digestion and aren't quite sure what it's being caused by, but these aren't bad things on their own. They're just things that could potentially cause distress if that is your concern. So other than that though, really focusing on just what we're adding in is going to be the most important part. Adding in that fiber, drinking enough water, having some of that diversity in there, that's going to really set the stage for a healthy gut microbiome. And then from there, it's more just understanding what kind of things might not work for you, because we are all individual. So in general, when it comes to gut health nutrition, plant foods are great. Variety, even better. So just looking for little ways to start increasing that fiber intake, playing around with maybe swapping in some new things so you can get a little bit of variety, making a little game out of it. How many different kinds of plant foods can I eat this month is a really great way to look at it. But really starting slow and make it enjoyable. Anytime that we're trying to make a shift in terms of supporting our health, the more enjoyable we can make it, the easier it's going to be to actually stick with it and be consistent with it. And that's the biggest thing. Are we being consistent with our fiber intake? That's going to make a way bigger difference, even if it's like we do a small amount of upping our fiber a bit, but do that consistently versus maybe having 2 days where you're like all jazzed up and you eat all the fiber and then you like totally let it go, right? So making sure we start slow, make it enjoyable, make it consistent. That's going to be the best way to get the most bang for our buck. But the nutrition to support our gut health really can be this simple, which is one of the reasons that I really love talking about the gut health piece, because it doesn't have to be this really specific protocol. It doesn't have to be these supplements or, cutting out a bunch of foods or being really restrictive. It really can just meet you where you're at, be really simple in terms of just adding in a few things here and there. It can go a really, really long way. And the cool thing with our gut health is we actually get to have a lot of say in it. It's not like it's just determined purely by our genetics or things like that. We actually do get to influence it just with the foods we're eating every day. So it's nice and simple and a really nice way, again, to support our athletic performance, because gut health is so tied into how we're feeling. And especially when we ask a lot of our bodies, right? We want to show up and feel energized and perform at our best. We definitely want to be looking for anywhere we can be supporting that, and supporting our guts is a great way to do that. So is there any questions before I move into this piece around the nutrition stuff?
Well, so if you do have questions, you can use the raise hand function in Zoom. So we will ask Jordan to unmute and you can ask your question.
With good fats, kale leaves were very healthy, and it has the fiber for salads.
Yes, yeah, kale's awesome for the fiber.
We grow salad greens in the garden.
Amazing. Yeah, if you have a garden that you can take advantage of, that's a great way to support your gut.
Yes, it's a very healthy way.
Absolutely.
To eat properly.
Definitely.
Not exercising too much.
Just the right amount.
Yes, try not to get hurt.
Absolutely. Very important part.
It's very it's
Awesome.
important.
Thank you very much, Jordan.
Thank you.
Joanna, if you would like to unmute.
Oh, hi, Erin.
Hi.
Yeah, I just a quick note for diabetics. Any things that like all diabetics need to know how much we eat, like type 1, like me. I have to eat more fiber too.
Yes.
Yeah.
The fiber is really, really helpful for diabetics, definitely. Depending on like your own situation and management, there might be certain carbohydrates and stuff to be mindful of just because,
Okay.
you understand your blood sugar, but
Yeah.
fiber is actually incredibly helpful and supportive for diabetics. So this all applies.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanna. Jason, you can unmute.
Yes, Erin, hi. Just wondering what your thoughts are on processed foods and gut health.
So whole foods, so like when we talk about like all the plant foods, the legumes, whole grains and all that, those are, whenever we can lean more into whole foods, that's always going to be very supportive of our gut health. I always like to take the stance of it's better to crowd out rather than feeling like we have to remove processed foods entirely, because there can be absolutely a time and place where they are necessary, where they are required, right? Like for convenience or cost or whatever reason. I definitely don't like to vilify them, but whenever we can choose a whole food option, that absolutely is going to be very supportive for our guts. So it's more looking at it as, where can I lean the direction of whole foods without feeling like I have to be perfect at it? I find that's usually the most sustainable way to approach it. Does that answer your question?
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole and Jason. If there's no other questions, we can move on to the next part.
Awesome. So going into the lifestyle bit, so we can also be supporting our guts outside of the kitchen. It's not just about the food, it's a holistic approach that we can take to it. So there's a few other things that we can look at that can really help support our gut health as well. So one of the big ones is exercise and movement. And this is great for you guys because you have all this activity and these sports that you're involved with and all of that. And that is great. Our gut microbiome loves exercise. And they've actually done studies where even if they changed nothing in the diet, like didn't add the fiber, the diversity, like changed nothing about their diet, but started regular, consistent exercise, that actually improved the diversity of the microbiome on its own. So exercise is so, so great for our guts. And it's this lovely cycle that we have for athletes where we, by taking care of our guts, we're going to perform better and feel better and have more energy for activity. And then we're doing this activity, which supports our gut. And it's this lovely cyclical relationship. So exercise is great for our guts. And in terms of what kinds of exercise is best or things like that, it's really whatever you like to do. Whatever you enjoy doing and do consistently, our guts like that. So exercise is great and movement is great as well. So I like to differentiate between exercise and movement. Exercise is like that formal activity. We're hitting the gym, we're playing soccer, we're getting sweaty, we're getting sore, like it's like a workout kind of thing. That's formal exercise. Movement is kind of just what we're doing through the day. We're walking around, picking up groceries, just like maybe some stretching, things like that, gentle movement. That's a really nice complement as well. So even, just getting in some regular walking and, maybe some gentle stretching, just kind of moving our bodies a little bit throughout the day. It doesn't have to be formal exercise, can also be really, really supportive for our gut health. So just having those two components is going to be supporting your gut as it is, which is fantastic. Looking at our sleep is also really, really important, because our gut wants that chance to rest and digest as well. So getting quality sleep, even if, getting to bed a little bit earlier, making sure that you are getting, 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep as often as you can is going to be really helpful for supporting your gut health. So the sleep piece, exercise and movement, both great. And a really, really big piece that we want to look at when it comes to our gut is the stress piece. So like I've mentioned, our gut and our brain are always chatting back and forth. And whenever we have stressors, whether they are, mental stressors or physical stressors in our environment, things like that, we're always communicating that with our guts, and that can actually really negatively impact our microbiota. It can really make them want to just be like, ooh, and not thrive and not want to be, multiplying and keeping us in balance and all these kinds of things. So the stress piece is really, really, really important to pay attention to. So things that we can do to be reducing stress and just being mindful is really, really helpful for our gut. So it's not all just about the food when it comes to supporting our guts. It's really all these other pieces, these lifestyle pieces as well, that we want to be working with in tandem, because we can be eating all the right foods in the world, but if we're really stressed out and not getting any sleep, then our gut is still going to have a hard time thriving. So we want to make sure to be incorporating these little things wherever we can as well. And the stress piece in particular is really, really important. So when it comes to supporting that stress component, really just looking for different ways to have a mindfulness practice. Some sort of mindfulness included in your day is a really great way to support your gut and that stress response, chilling out a little bit. So a practice even like mindful eating. And we talked about how even slowing down with our meals can really help our digestive systems. So this mindful eating piece helps in a bunch of ways, because it slows us down, which is really good for our digestive systems, but it can also, slow our nervous system down. It can bring a little bit of that stress down. We can kind of relax a little bit. Our guts like to eat in a relaxed state, not a really tense, like stressed out state, because that's when we tend to hold a lot of tension in our bodies and it's harder to digest efficiently. So we want to be able to take a few deep breaths, slow down, enjoy our meal, and chew really well. And that can be really helpful for bringing our stress response down as it is. So even if, you don't maybe feel like you want to do a meditation practice or something like that, incorporating a mindful meal, even just once a day can be a really big help in terms of bringing that stress response down. Meditation can be great, or any sort of mindfulness practice that just gets you to slow down and be quiet is really helpful. Slow, gentle movement. So things like yoga or slow walking, anything that kind of just gets you into your body and relax, really great. Quiet time, like I said, it doesn't have to be a formal meditation, but just some sort of quiet time that lets your nervous system relax, really helpful for the gut. Any sort of relaxing activities that we can include, right? Sometimes we don't have total control over the stressors in our lives, right? There could be a million things going on, or all these different pieces and things that can feel like we're a little bit out of our control. So it's like, oh, well, what am I supposed to do about this? And really, it's more just about how can I incorporate things that do help me relax, that do help me slow down, that do help me get mindful, so that my body's more resilient to those stressors. So it's okay that there's stress in our lives. It's okay that we might be stressed around different things. It's just, how do we support ourselves as best we can with that? So having some sort of relaxation just included on a semi-regular basis can go a really long way in just making our body feel more resilient to stress, and therefore our guts more resilient to stress. Yeah. So these are all good things to include. So we have all these different tools to work with. How do we make this really work for ourselves? How do we start incorporating these different tools in ways that feel simple and doable? So again, we don't need to go from 0 to 100 on this stuff. Pick 1 to 2 areas that you're interested in focusing on. So maybe you're interested in upping your fiber a little bit. Maybe you're interested in playing with that diversity piece of it. Maybe you want to include more, gentle movement or things like that. Maybe, sleep is one thing that you need to focus on, or you need more rest. So maybe that's the area, or maybe it's the stress piece. Maybe you're like, oh, I'm really interested in doing more of the mindful eating or things like that. Pick 1 to 2 to get started. Like I said, it's far better to take on a small amount and be able to work with it consistently, so you can build that in as a foundation, rather than try and take on everything all at once. And then that gets exhausting after a few days and you just want to quit, go back to it. So it's far better to start small, start manageable. So start by just picking 1 to 2 areas you're interested in focusing on. And then within that, pick 1 to 2 habits to experiment with and see how they make you feel. So maybe if you're playing with the fiber piece, we can say, okay, I'm going to add a veggie to dinner every night and maybe a piece of fruit to my snack every afternoon. that's a great place to start, right? We don't have to go from 0 to 100, or, maybe it's just saying, okay, I'm going to include some like nuts and seeds as a part of my snacks this week. That could be a great way to just play with adding fiber. Maybe you want to play with the diversity thing. It's like, okay, well, every time I run out of, this nut, like maybe you like snacking on like nuts or something like that. Every time I run out of this, I'm going to switch to a different one. That's a great way to do diversity, or maybe every time I go to make this like wraps for the week, I'll switch out the veggies that I use in my wraps, or, maybe I'll try a different kind of soup this week or things like that. So you can definitely play with habits like that. If you're wanting to play with the movement piece, maybe just adding in like, oh, I'm going to go for a 5-minute walk after dinner or something like that. Or maybe I'm going to stretch in front of the TV before I go to bed. That's a really nice way to add in some movement. And the sleep piece, maybe it's going to bed a little bit earlier, or maybe it's having a bit of a bedtime routine just so you can calm your system down a little bit. So making some space around that. Or maybe you want to focus on the stress piece and it's like, okay, I'll try meditating for 5 minutes every day this week. Or maybe I'll try having a mindful meal once a day for the next week and see how that feels. So keep it nice and small and manageable. And if that feels really doable for a week or two, then add something in or kick it up at a little notch, right? And build from there. That's going to be the best way to build sustainable gut healthy practices with this stuff. Yeah. But again, the thing I love talking about the gut health piece is it really affects all these different aspects of our health. It really does, like the seat of so many of these things. Our microbiome works so hard and does all these different things to keep us feeling good, but it really doesn't have to be overwhelming to support that health. It really can be as simple as just adding in a few things here and there and getting curious. So that's actually, we moved really quickly through everything today. But do we have any questions about gut health?
Awesome. So if anyone else has questions, you can use raise hand function again. There's a few. So April, you can unmute.
So sometimes I struggle with my fiber intake, so I will take Metamucil just to help it out. Is that okay?
Yeah, so supplementing fiber is actually a really good thing that you could do. So Metamucil works well. That's actually the like non-branded name is just psyllium husk. It's spelled like with a P, which sounds weird, but it's called psyllium husk. And you can get it on its own, or you can get it in the form of Metamucil, but you can absolutely supplement with fiber. So if you find that you have a hard time adding in fiber for whatever reason, using a supplement like a Metamucil, psyllium husk, you can also use flax, like ground flax seed is a really great way to supplement fiber. Those are all excellent. And psyllium husk is actually really great because it's helpful for our digestion for like from a bunch of different facets. Like if we find that our digestion is really, really sensitive, it can help with that. If we find that, we just really need a lot more fiber in our diet, it helps with that. Like it kind of helps from all these different angles. So psyllium husk is great. Metamucil, great. Definitely can supplement.
Thank you, April. Cassie, you can unmute.
Thank you for the fun session tonight, Erin.
You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Awesome. Cassie, do you have a question too?
No, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Cassie. Kaylee, you can unmute.
Hi, Erin.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I have a good question. I used to put cheese in my salad. Is it cheese be okay if you're on salad for toppings?
Absolutely. Cheese is delicious on salads. And the important thing when we're looking at adding in this fiber piece, like maybe doing more salads or stir fries, make them delicious. Yeah. If we make things that we want to eat, like we make our vegetables taste the way we want them to taste, then we're more likely to eat them. So yeah, cheese on salads is great.
That'd be awesome. So that's my question.
Perfect.
Thank you, Kaylee. Jordan, you can unmute.
What I did in a salad video, I just put some corn in my salad because I just put hard-boiled eggs in my salad because it gets protein.
Yes, that's awesome. corn is a great way to add in some fiber as well. So that's fantastic. You've got fiber, you've got protein, you're crushing it.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jordan. Are there any other questions? Just give it a minute here. Nope. Well, I sure learned a lot. Every time Erin comes, I learn something new. I know I've introduced smoothies more into my diet. So I want to thank you for coming out and sharing with us. Oh, we got one more. So Jason and Nicole, you can unmute.
Hi, sorry, just one more quick question. So Jason is celiac and lactose intolerant and borderline type 2 diabetic. So he's got a lot going on as far as his gut health goes. So any suggestions on fruits and vegetables that would be higher in calcium? I'm really worried about his calcium intake.
Calcium, so leafy greens are usually pretty good for calcium, as is sesame seed. Like tahini and sesame seeds can be really good for like a plant-based calcium. It's not a bad idea to look at supplementing with calcium as well. That's definitely not a bad idea as well. And then also just being mindful, like definitely don't feel like you have to jack the fiber up really quickly, because obviously like if we have sensitive digestion, we want to do that slowly. So that would be the big thing there.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole and Jason. So yeah, I just wanted to say thanks again, Erin. It's always a pleasure having you come and join us, and we often learn quite a bit. Basketball is the password. Other than that, thanks, Erin. It's always great. And I will see you all probably next week. We did move the session from Monday to Wednesday, so please note there is no session on the 23rd anymore. It is the 25th.